All right, welcome everybody that is here in Zoom with us, and those that might be watching from Facebook live feed on the Space Coast Pool School Facebook page. Welcome to our monthly free training, which will be it's being recorded as well, so it'll be posted later on the Space Coast Pool School YouTube channel. For those of you that cannot make it live today because of work or anything like that, you'll still get to catch Clemente teaching you about high capacity feed chlorination, brought to you by Space Coast Pool School today. So just a little bit about me sponsoring and organizing this to get everybody some free training from time to time, usually every other month. So I'm a provider of the PHTA Certified Pool Operator courses in person in Florida, anywhere in Florida, and private classes as well in Florida for in person. I also teach the 100% virtual CPO course. I can do private classes for that as well. I do the fusion class and the 2-day virtual CPO class, just like the full 2-day class. I have a couple of instructors working with me now. If you want more information about that, you can go to spacecoastpoolschool.com. Lauren Broom, I'm the owner of Space Coast Pool School. There's my contact number. I've added a couple other courses that I'm teaching now as well. I'm doing a live virtual 2-day OSHA 10 certification for the pool industry. This is a specific to the pool industry, not welding or electrical, and you get your full OSHA 10 card from the Department for OSHA. So you actually walk away with a certification from that class. I'm also doing the live virtual CPI or Certified Pool Inspector course. That is a PHTA course, but I'm doing the 6-hour live virtual class, and then you take your virtual test whenever you're ready afterwards. Oh, we got a couple more people. Awesome. And then in Florida specifically, I have a new program. It's a mentorship program where I'm partnered with pool companies. If you'd like to be a partner and you're in Florida, let me know. You can email me. You'll get paid to mentor somebody who's looking for hands-on training for 5 days. So, and it's a pretty decent rate. I basically asked people what they wanted to get paid, and it needed to be something that sets up our industry in a professional way. So it is a professional amount that you'd get paid, but it's partnering CPO class with on-hands training currently available in Florida if they register for it. So our main presenter today is Clemente Rivera, and he will actually be joining me hopefully this summer to offer virtual Spanish CPO classes to those that need that in Spanish. And it will be offered through, you can register through Space Coast Pool School, probably June, July-ish is when that'll happen this year. But let's go ahead and get right into our main topic today, the free training that being sponsored by Space Coast Pool School on high capacity feed chlorination, why you guys have joined us either on Facebook Live or in the Zoom room. And I welcome everybody that's joined us on Zoom. Thank you for being here today. I hope you walk away and you learn one new thing, just one little thing, right, Clemente, that you didn't know about it. So I'm going to hand it off to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can start sharing your screen, Clemente. And I'm going to go on mute. And I ask everybody, if you go on mute like me, and if you have a question, you can come off mute and ask your question at that point in time. All right, it's all yours, Clemente.
Can you see my screen? Okay, so high capacity feed chlorination. Before I do a deep dive there, I want to go over a little bit about the history of water quality control in the United States. And well, it all started in why is this not working? There we go. It all started in the 1970s. So Roger Strand invented a way to use ORP measurement to measure water quality in a swimming pool. And back in the mid 70s, he started a company called Stranco. And the first controller that came out was called the 311B. It was a big monster. I think it was about 4 feet tall. It weighed a lot, but it was the first water quality controller that actually uh, measured pool water quality and kept pools crystal clear. Those first 311Bs that came out, they also had Wallace and Tiernan pumps installed with them, and they were very large and robust. They were pretty big. You could shock a pool really quickly with those units. The system, this advent revolutionized the industry, and it has, it's never been the same after that. The pools back then, they were crystal clear, zero chloramine issues. So in the 80s, things started to change. So the original Strantrol patent ended. We had other companies that came into light, such as Aquasol, Santa Barbara Controls, and others. And the bidding situation in new pool construction, people had to get creative because the lowest bidder always won. So what most companies did is they started sacrificing the feeder sizing to get a pricing advantage. And even then, Strantrol had to start lowering their original standards to meet market share. So the result was basically later on in the 80s, legislation changes on the health codes started adding minimum guidelines to feeder sizing. And unfortunately, without the data from the original Strantrol installations, that valuable information was never able to come to light and was completely lost. So pools were then engineered with less than desirable size feeders were coming to market, and the chloramination issue started. So we went from first time control system that absolutely took care of all water issues, to now having these controllers that were mated with smaller or less than desirable sized chemical feeders, and with that, the whole chloramination issue came up. So the pool odors started coming up, and people were getting irritation from it. So from that, if you have a pool and you're on ORP control, and that ORP drops below any busy periods, and you can't stay within 3 millivolts of set point, you are a victim of chloramination. So in the 1990s, Strantrol got bought by a bigger company called US Filter at the time, and they had some engineers who tried to get creative, and they had the right idea. It's just that they kind of missed out on one very important detail. So they developed what was called the ECS, the Environmental Control System, in the mid 90s. And its purpose was to combat chloramines, based on a US patent showing that a desirable ORP of 830 millivolts was considered the sweet spot for chloramine control. So they're saying you could maintain 830 millivolts with a good pH, and chloramines would go away. It failed. Why? Because the chemical feeder that they used, which was a tablet chlorination system, it was very, very small, and it was way undersized for the purpose that they were trying to meet. And they even tried adding monopersulfate feed in conjunction. So they were feeding chlorine and monopersulfate at the same time. And it just made that problem worse, because at the time, MPS had irritation issues connected with it. So imagine swimmers are running in they run into this pool, they jump into this pool, swim in it, and they're coming out all itchy and stuff because of the monopersulfate. So the system was literally scuttled shortly after it came to market. And like And then the fun started to, the fun begins after that. So secondary sanitation was introduced in the late 90s. We had seen ozone all throughout, but in the 90s, ozone generation was reintroduced as a secondary sanitizer, allowing a mitigation of chloramines, this time using corona discharge technology. And it offered a better option over the old UV style ozone systems. UV also came out after a crypto outbreak in Seneca, New York, recognized the need to combat cryptosporidium. So both were introduced not only as a way to defeat crypto, but also to lower pool chloramines in an indoor pool. So the situation worsens because now today, on top of secondary sanitation, you now have air handling systems trying to dump chloraminated air into the outdoors as well, making the problem even worse. A former Olympic swimmer did an article on a particular Olympic pool and said that the exhausting of chloraminated air outdoors was basically a form of pollution. The person literally went up to the roof of that facility and saw the exhaust vent and literally was overcome with a strong odor. And he literally is like, this is pollution. So what's going on? Let's get back to basics, okay? The chemical formulas that we're trying to achieve are incomplete, allowing for chloramination to occur. So we're pumping chlorine in, but we're not putting it in fast enough for the demand that we have, and because of that, we're not completing the chemical reaction that we need. So more is better. All right. Dosing above the mandated minimum feeder sizing is the only way to truly combat chloramines. All right. So the mandates in the health code, they're all minimum standards. They're not the maximums. So we all should, there's a way to combat this, but we have to stop looking at the mandates. We have to do better than the mandates. All right. So faster dosing will achieve those chemical formula requirements, and we'll be able to reach breakpoint chlorination during the dosing process. So there's going to be absolutely no need to shock a pool. So the question that everyone's going to ask is, well, how much more? So HCF. I started my journey in this on this philosophy back in 2003. And basically, hyperdosing a pool during the automated feed process will provide astonishing reduction to chloramines, as well as a few other surprises. So large feeder sizing is a big part of this, okay? For my recommendation is a feeder should be capable of reaching 20 parts per million in a 1 hour period, okay? So everybody's code is different. I mean, even in New York State says that the pool should be able to achieve 10 parts per million. The problem though is they don't tell you how long it needs to reach it. So you could have two pools, both, with different size feeders, but as long as you can get to 10 parts per million, they don't care how long, it's compliant. But that's a problem because that smaller feeder is going to have more chloramination problems than the larger size feeder. So there's a quote that I heard many years ago. Actually, one of the Paul is probably the guy who taught me that, but it was, if you smell it, you're not putting enough in. All right. Controller parameters have to also be adjusted to allow for larger pulses of chlorine to be managed. The proportional controls should have, a good controller should allow you to make adjustments of the span and the feed cycle. So a controller with these editable parameters is a must. So in my years of introducing this in pools, these are a couple of things that I noticed. So when you're hyperdosing chlorine, chlorine will actually start behaving like its halogen cousin, ozone. So in an ozone system, they tell you have to have an ORP sensor on the return line to show how much ORP is in the water going back to the pool. So I've actually done this in a couple of places, and I found that when you're hyperdosing your chlorine, you end up with the same ORP values or better. So now that since they're cousins, this should be the performance that you should get. From the beginning, every pool I've ever done this to, even outdoor pools, has been able to maintain 1 millivolt from set point, 24/7, 365. There's actually a reduced chemical cost, which restores the Strantrol promise back in 1975. Monochloramine is actually still present, but it does not create odors like di and trichloramine, which are completely eradicated. How do I know? Well, there are test kits out there that will test for monochloramine, dichloramine, and trichloramine. And in all of my studies, I found that hyperdosing chlorine actually reduces and eliminates di and trichloramine, but there's still monochloramine present. Monochloramine is not the problem. It doesn't cause odors. It doesn't cause irritation. It's its other cousins. So the EPA has allowed monochloramines to be used in drinking water for quite some time, and they have an established level of 1.5 to 2.5 parts per million in drinking water. The Model Health Code and other codes, their chloramine limit of 0.2 parts per million is actually designated for di and trichloramines, not monochloramine. All right, I'm going to talk about an example of a pool that's using HCF and to its advantage. It's the Convent of the Sacred Heart Athletic Center in New York City. I have many other examples of these achievements under the guidance of other aquatic professionals that actually believe in this philosophy. So, Convent of the Sacred Heart built an athletic center in 2016. It's a 144,000 gallon swimming pool. When it opened, it had a Cal Hypo feed system that was putting out 10 pounds per hour of available chlorine. It had acid feed, it had a UV system, and sand filtration. From the first day, they were suffering from very high chloramine odors and very bad bather and attendee complaints. When I first walked into this place, they were having a swim practice, and even I went to the spectator area first because it was the highest elevation. I couldn't even stand 2 seconds in that room. My eyes were immediately burning. So imagine going down to the deck level. It was even worse. I mean, I literally saw swimmers coughing. The lifeguards were like rubbing their eyes all the time. It was horrible. And for a brand new pool with UV to have that problem, I realized that they were a great candidate for HCF. Let me tell you what I did. So first thing we did is we installed a larger Cal Hypo feeder. This time, the new feeder puts out 36 pounds per hour AVCL. That's enough for that pool to get to 20 parts per million in 1 hour. Actually, slightly faster. We had to actually dial down the feeder to put slightly less. We added carbon dioxide feed, and we still kept the acid. And what that does is it maintains a steady pH and alkalinity. And then we installed a static mixer, because in New York, for example, you have to have what they call a 50-foot rule, because they want to make sure that all the CO2 is dissolved properly into the water. So adding a static mixer completely eliminates that rule, because in a span of 18 inches, you literally can see the CO2 going in and coming out, no bubble. Bubbles coming in, no bubbles coming out. So it's a huge advantage by doing that. After I got done with them, after 2 years, they literally shut their UV. They shut it off. Why? Because now they're saving on those horrible UV maintenance costs. So I think I was charging them about $4,000 a year just to service their UV. And guess what? No more odor issues. Down the street from this facility, there's a 50-meter complex that wants to do the same thing, because they have even worse issues after installing a new UV system about 2 years ago. If you guys are interested, I can get you I can send you the reference information so you could speak to them yourself and discuss you know, how good things are for them. So the players, these are the brands and the of both the chemical controllers and chemical feeders that I recommend. For controllers, obviously Beck's prominent. Evoqua has Neptune Benson has a controller called the Blue Sentinel. Link Automation out of New Jersey. They have the 100, the 300, and the 500 series controllers that are available. Even the Pool Warden has the capability of having its span and its timer settings adjusted. Chemical feeders, I always like Stenner. LMI is a great brand. Wallace and Tiernan. CO2, any CO2 brand will do it. Most importantly is that static mixer with Cal Hypo systems. As long as any of these systems are properly sized, you can achieve HCF. Shearwater Technologies has an acid feeder and a sodium hypochlorite feeder, which I really like because they incorporate a Venturi. So mixing of the chemicals is very important to me, and that one is high on my list for a bleach feed. So sorry, but salt systems don't apply here. The main reason is because ORP is a big part of the mix. Having parts per million probes is a nice to have thing, but ORP is really what I use to gauge the water quality. Okay. Static mixers, they help bleach systems and CO2 mix better into the return line.
Still there?
Like I said, there's no 50-foot rule for CO2 feed, and it mixes chlorine nicely into the pool water, assuring the proper formulas are achieved. I've actually done tests with bleach where I wanted to see how many elbows after the injection point are needed to properly mix the chlorine into solution. And apparently it takes about 10 elbows. So you tell me how many places have 10 elbows after the chlorine injection in order to have proper mixing. It's next to none. So I invite everyone, if you want more information on HCF, what it's all about, or if you need a site evaluation, please give me a call. I can do Zoom calls. I can do site visits anywhere. I've been pretty much all over the country talking to people about this. So here's my contact information, and I'll open it up to the group if there's any questions.
Do you have any pictures to share of some of the systems?
I don't, because every system is different, but I know you had a picture that you showed. That is actually a
Shearwater system, right?
Yeah, the Shearwater system.
I think it was one I had from down here in Orange County Parks and Rec. They have it on their big Fort Gatlin pool, and I taught a class there. And okay. I had never seen one of those before. There's a picture in the CPO handbook, but I had never seen one in person until there.
Right. The one though that you have in your advertising for this seminar is actually in Pennsylvania. That was one that I built that and I installed it. So yeah, it's in.
I found
It's
that
in Central
online.
PA.
I
Yeah.
found that online, but I have the same picture, the same system, like
Yep.
in my CPO class PowerPoints as well. And so when I first saw it, I was like, what is that? You know, the first time I saw it, because you get used to all the other types of systems. And I actually just interviewed Robert Burrows with Sure Water Technologies for the podcast. So
Right.
you guys will get a lot more information on their hyperchlorination system coming up on the podcast as well. The Let's Talk About Pools podcast when that episode
Awesome.
airs. So had fun interviewing him, learned a lot about something new. I've seen a lot of the cow hypo feeders and stuff like that. So very cool. Anybody else have any questions? It's nice that we have a nice short training in the morning, so it doesn't take up everybody's morning. Learn a little bit about something while we're here, but not have to be on for like, you know, 2-hour window or anything like that. That's why we like to do short little topics, right, Clemente?
Absolutely.
Just so people can get something new every other month and not spend 2 hours of their life, because everybody's busy, busy, busy. So if there's no questions, then somebody's coming in. Let's see if he has any questions. He's connecting the audio. We'll just give him a chance. So August, we're almost done. So do you have any questions about high capacity feed chlorination while you're here? You'd have to come off mute. Do you have any questions, August?
No, I just returned back. So what was that middle part again?
Do you have any questions about high capacity feed chlorination?
No, not at this point.
Okay. So sorry, you joined us right at the tail end here, August. That's okay. So thank you for being on this month's free training. And we will have another topic in what this is March. So the month of May, we'll have another topic at that point. And it'll be a nice short little training on something different that you don't always get, you know. And please go to my YouTube channel for previous trainings like this, where we've had some that are lengthy and some that are short, and all the recordings are posted up on there. We had 2 different ORP trainings, salt chlorine generation with Sean Assam from AquaCal, stains identification and how to treat stains with Jack's Magic with Joel Gray. There's just a lot of good stuff up on the YouTube channel already. So go there if you've missed any previous trainings like this, and you can get caught back up. But thank you for everybody being on today, and you guys have a great day.
Bye, everybody.